You know what I mean? People found out that I was in here for those type of charges, and he wanted to talk junk to me, come in my face, and you know, I just had to defend myself.
All right, before we even get into this video, let me talk to y'all real quick. This channel right here, this ain't just reactions. This is real life. This is coming from somebody that actually been through the system. I've sat in them chairs. I've stood in front of that parole board. I've been violated, sent back, did time in different level facilities all across Connecticut. This ain't secondhand info, this is lived experience. I came home, finished my sentence, stayed out the system, and now I'm out here working as a drug and alcohol counselor, helping people that's going through the same struggles, coming out of jail, dealing with addiction, trying to figure life out. So when I speak on this, I'm speaking from both sides of the fence. And that's exactly what this channel is going to be about. We're going to be reacting to real parole hearings, revocation hearings, court situations, not just in Connecticut, but anywhere we can get it. But the difference is you're not just getting entertainment, you're getting game. You're getting perspective from somebody who really understands what it feels like to be sitting there fighting for your freedom. Now, today's video, we got a dude going in front of the parole board. Long history, the gun charges, violence, domestic situation, and he's trying to play it like he's getting bullied inside because of his charges. Now, listen, I'm not saying that don't happen. Certain charges will get you pressure in jail, but let's keep it real. It's levels to that. And the way he's presenting it, I'm not fully buying it. He begging the board for another chance, and I'm always for second chances. I'm living proof people can change. But at the same time, you're not a kid no more. At some point, accountability got to match your age. And what really got me is how he carries himself at the end of the hearing. When y'all see it, you're going to understand exactly what I mean. That right there would have made me stop the whole hearing and check him. So we're going to break this whole thing down. Body language, mindset, what he's saying, what he's not saying, and what the board is really looking at behind the scenes, and more importantly, what y'all can learn from this. Because this ain't just about him. This is about anybody trying to come home, stay home, and move different.
So good morning, my name is Parole Officer Priscilla, and today is Thursday, April 30th, 2026. I'm the hearing examiner for the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles, and this is a supplemental hearing concerning George Nelson, inmate number 414045. This is a public hearing, and public access to this hearing is available via video live stream. Board members, can you please state your names for the record?
White Pole.
Aileen Keys.
And Member Rodriguez.
So this hearing is being conducted because the panel identified issues that can justify confinement beyond what was recommended at the board review on April 23rd, 2026. Mr. Nelson, can you please state your full name and inmate number for the record?
George Nelson. Good morning, George Nelson, 414045.
Thank you. And also present is your attorney. Can you please identify yourself for the record?
Sure. Attorney Alfonso Sirica with the Parole Revocation Unit. Mr. Nelson, if I may, the video feed sometimes goes in and out. If at some point it's breaking up, just raise your hand. There's no way of me knowing if you're hearing what I'm saying or what any of the board members are saying, okay?
Okay, no problem.
So, Mr. Nelson, you have certain rights that apply to this supplemental hearing. The first is that you have the right to receive the written notice of the supplemental hearing. Did you receive a packet of information which would have included the written notice of the hearing and the reason for the hearing to be conducted?
Mhm.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Thank you. You also have the right to be represented by an attorney, and counsel is here present for you. You also have the right to submit relevant documents, evidence to address the issues or issues that the panel determined may justify confinement beyond what I had recommended for revocation hearing. So, counsel, do you have any documents that you want to submit today?
It's going to be strictly verbal testimony.
And you also do have the right to call witnesses to testify on your own behalf and cross-examine adverse witnesses regarding the issues that the panel determined. So, counsel, any
No.
So, Mr. Nelson, do you have any questions before we begin?
No, ma'am.
So the testimony at today's hearing will be taken under oath. So, Mr. Nelson, can you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it was just
I
going
think
in
this
and out.
hand
for a
was like
second.
that.
I can hear you. Go.
You're good? Okay.
Did you actually
you
get
solemnly-
right here?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So do you solemnly swear, solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth,
Yes.
and nothing but the truth, so help you God or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So we're gonna, so during this hearing, or during your hearing, I did find that you violated the condition of obedience to the law and recommended a sanction of 4 months of confinement. The panel did determine that the information in your record could justify a departure beyond my recommendation. So at this time, it is the defense's opportunity to respond to these concerns. Counsel?
Yes, if I may. First, I'd like to address, I believe, the hearing examiner indicated 4 months. Mr. Poe, obviously I watched this hearing numerous times. Initially, you indicated it was a 3-month sanction, but then along the way, the first time around, you did correct it. But I just want to make sure we're on the same page that we started. That all the documents indicate 4 months, but verbally it was stated it was 3 months. Yes, it's 4 months. And regarding this particular file, so Mr. Nelson's file, I think the word I have down is quirky from day one. And what I mean by that was that the PCS addendum was not filed within the 14 business day regulation that's in place. But the problem with that regulation, there's no remedy if that addendum is late. So to start with, the addendum was late, which meant my client didn't get his revocation hearing within the time frame in the regulation. And then obviously I received all the evidence, and once I saw the disposition with an infraction, I did not anticipate being in front of a 3-member panel for the infraction on criminal charges. I understand from what I heard you say on the record and your colleagues agree to it, that you have some concern regarding the potential escalation of violence or something along those lines, which you indicated on the record. I just want to put on the record, this is my client's, it's his first parole violation. In my humble opinion, the 4-month sanction on an infraction is more than sufficient punishment for an infraction. Now, with the understanding, and I'll get into that regarding the police report, my client does not have any domestic convictions on his record from what I've gathered and what I found through my investigation and criminal background check. And I'm gonna address the New York issue shortly, but I do want to address these particular facts because, in my opinion, it is very important. The argument, according to the police report, was over my client coming home late, and the victim wanted him out, and she wanted to change the locks. Also states in the police report that she was the only one on the lease. That is absolutely not true. I do have a copy of the lease, residential lease agreement, and made on the 7th day of May between the properties. Both parties named are on the lease. What my client should have done before the verbal dispute occurred, he called the police. We do have a statute in Connecticut, criminal lockout. His name's on the lease. He doesn't have to leave. He did leave. He went outside, and when the police came, he was smoking a cigarette outside the apartment. He never left. He never left the immediate vicinity. I understand what is written in the police report, but the police report is strictly hearsay evidence. And I'm not well aware, the panel is aware how criminal trials work. The police are called, the police investigate, police talk to people, police write a police report, they submit it to court, and a prosecutor, judge looks at it. That's how we come to a disposition. My client from day one maintained it was a verbal dispute, and he indicated I was outside smoking a cigarette. If that had occurred, obviously I would have ran. I would have taken off. I'm not going to wait out there if that's what occurred. He tells me that, and I says, I'm sorry, I represent you on the parole violation part. That's going to have to be dealt with in court, which it was. Now, when he went to court, he had an attorney there. He advised his attorney what occurred. Now, the prosecutor, they did their investigation, obviously, and the charges went from those criminal charges. It could have easily been a suspended sentence on a breach of peace, disorderly conduct. There's numerous other charges that the prosecutor could have held my client responsible for. But to get from those charges on paper, they just on paper, to an infraction tells me a lot. Spent over 18 years in the criminal court before coming to this unit almost 7 years ago. There was some issues with elements of the charge. He said, she said. I understand what the police report indicated regarding some marks and things of that nature. I did not receive, I'm not sure the panel, any pictures of any type of injuries. There's none of that in evidence. None of it was presented in court. And my understanding was the victim did submit a letter to the victim's advocate, which made its way to my client's attorney, the judge, and the prosecutor. And once again, in criminal charges, are brought at a plea, the prosecutor has to put the elements of the crime on the record, and the judge needs to make a factual basis of that. And the transcript I received from the day of the sentencing, this is Attorney Holly, who's the prosecutor. Your Honor, December 20th, 2025, police dispatched to an address here in the city of Waterbury on a verbal document which dispatch relayed to the officers that the complainant had told her to leave the house. He refused to do so. They arrived. They located the defendant smoking outside the residence. When they questioned him, he said that he and his girlfriend were arguing because he did not come home last night. And when he did, she was upset and told him to leave. So, excuse me. The factual basis that the prosecutor put on the record has to be accepted by a criminal court judge, which the judge did. And the other point I want to make is in the hearsay police report, thankfully, in my client's case, we have a prosecutor who does the checks and balances, who's credible, what's credible, what evidence can come in, not come in. And that's what the prosecutor put on the record regarding the facts, the factual basis, and the judge accepted those factual basis on the record. As far as my client, when he got back from New York, once again, I'm saving that part for the end, he did immediately get a job with Turkey Hut, which is a family-run food truck, and he'd been working with that family business for 2.5 years. He already started a little side business, landscape in New Britain. So he had 2 jobs. He did attend 12 sessions of anger management of April of 25 to May of 2025 at MCCA, which is the Midwestern Connecticut Council of Alcoholism, but they also do anger management. And he's also previously done outpatient behavioral health treatment in the past. There was no issues with his, he had a previous parole officer, I believe he indicated to me it was appealed to Senate. He said a great relationship with the parole officer and had spoken about potential violent paperwork for early termination. He was in compliance with what he was supposed to do. Regarding, I believe that was your main concern, Mr. Poe, the New York incident, you indicated he came back and you want to know what that was about. After speaking to my client, I believe the charge in New York was brandishing a firearm, which was not a violent offense, not considered a violent offense. He did not use that in the commission of any type of crime. The allegation was that my client, someone saw him with a firearm, and in the course of the investigation, my client was leaving a restaurant and he was picked up by the police in New York as he was leaving a restaurant. He was held, obviously. They did their investigation, and ultimately it was time served on that sentence for him to come to back to Connecticut to start his supervision here in Connecticut. So I just want to make it abundantly clear. I understand it was concerning regarding the domestic violence. It's nothing like this at all in New York. There was no violence in New York involved. There was no gun was ever found in New York. I just want to make sure that the record is abundantly clear regarding that. And I'm sure you're going to have some questions from my client regarding that. But those are my initial comments, kind of give you my take on the overall facts and what occurred in court and what the ultimate disposition here was in court for my client. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll proceed to questions.
Sure.
Okay.
What is it? Do you want to make a statement? Do you want to make a statement?
Do
I want to hear.
you have anything further to add from your what your attorney said?
No, I just, wish to get out and continue doing what I was doing, as far as working and taking care of the kids and stuff like that. And, I'm very sorry that this happened or whatever, but, I'm trying to better myself and just move on from the situation. And, I would just ask to take y'all, if y'all can consider it, it has been, 3 years that I've done straight with no incidents, no complaints, no nothing. I was just, out there doing what I had to do. And, anytime I wanted to do something or whatever, I went to them and I asked for permission like I was supposed to. Even when I got arrested, I called him like I was supposed to and let him know the situation. And I got called back 2 or 3 times. And in the transcript that he said was that I told him that I was at the house with my fiance, and that wasn't the case. I was at my mother's house. So I don't know where he got that from. And I wish there was like video or some type of voice that was active or whatever, because I never said that to him. You know what I'm saying? So, and I understand that when you catch a charge or whatever, they could be, you know, remanded. But at the same time, I never had no issues with parole. Never. So I don't understand why he said that at all. Because even if he would have asked me that question, I would have told him I'm at my mother's house. My mother has cameras. Like, that shows that I was there. So I'm not understanding where he got that from at all. But I'm just asking to take consideration to let me back out there so I can take care of my family and do what I got to do.
And if I may also, Mr. Paul, I advised my client you were going to have, the panel was going to have questions for him. That's why I think Mr. Rodriguez indicated a statement.
Yeah.
My understanding of this, there's going to be some questions.
Sure, certainly. And there will.
I still wanted to hear from
Yes.
I looked at his last interview and I had saying I didn't want to hear from
Fair enough.
Thank you.
So I just want to establish a couple of things. Why are you on special parole right now?
I'm on special parole for assault first.
And in that assault first, or assault first, 1 or 2 counts?
2 counts.
And in those two in those 2 assault first, what did you do?
I was actually robbed. So at gunpoint, you know what I mean? So I actually took, after I had a gun pointed on me, you know, I took it in my own hands and defended myself. You know, I can't.
Okay, and what did you do? Because I want to get to the basis of what my concerns are, and we'll get to the
I ended up shooting the victim that had a gun pointed to me that robbed me for $3,000.
Okay, so you had a gun and you shot someone.
Yes.
Right. And then the other assault one, which was on a different date, right?
Yes, but the only reason, yes, you're absolutely right.
So then the other assault one was what?
That I did, that was, they wanted to run the cases together. So I felt like that if I went to a jury on that, then I would probably, it wouldn't, you know what I'm saying, it would be a 50-50 chance. So I didn't do it, is what I'm trying to say to you.
Okay.
I never did that.
Right, but I'm trying to get you to understand why we're here today. In the second conviction that you're on special parole for right now, what did you plead guilty to?
I pled guilty to everything at once. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It was
Right.
assault versus. It was assault versus.
Both assault first, and
Yes.
both times people were either shot or shot at, right?
Yes, but the first one is the one that I did.
Okay.
You know, the other charge came a little bit later, and that dude just put that they was best friends, and he just told him I did it. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm taking ownership of the first one that I did, is what I'm saying to you.
Okay. Now, we talked about, we broached the subject with New York. That's something that happened on discretionary parole, which is something that, you know, that was over and done with, and now you're on special parole, right? But in that case, in New York, what were you actually charged with?
It was brandishing a firearm, I believe.
Brandishing a firearm.
Yes.
Or to get to be more specific, it was criminal possession of a weapon, second, loaded firearm.
Yeah, but I never had a firearm, but they offered me time served. It was like 18 months or something like that. So I didn't want to go through the trial process, so I just pleaded guilty to it.
Okay, so So criminal possession of a loaded firearm.
Yes,
And that's what you did time for in New York.
yes,
And then you came back to Connecticut to begin special parole.
yes, because I successfully finished my parole and everything when I was on house arrest out there and everything, and I successfully finished everything. And then I told them that I wanted to come back so I can finish up my time here.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, you know, and then just, have you had other weapons charges in your criminal history?
No,
No other weapons charges.
no,
Okay. And part of the narrative in the police report that was part of the evidence that was presented during the revocation hearing, you were accused of what?
I guess putting my hands on my wife. So it was a domestic violence.
So, and not convicted of, and did your attorney's explanations in the record. However, you were charged with strangulation second.
Yes,
Okay. So, do you understand why we're here?
yes, absolutely.
So that just to establish the groundwork of why we're here, right?
Yes,
Because for me, it's like, if we weren't here right now, I would be negligent in my duty, right? Based upon everything that's there, right? So now that we have that established, I want to find out if other board members have questions in regard to this case.
yes.
Board member Keys,
Thank
questions?
you. Thank you, yes. Thank you, Mr. Nelson, for answering everyone's questions so far, my colleagues' questions so far. I do have some additional ones, but your answers so far have been helpful. I just want to make sure that when you signed your conditions of parole, you are aware that if you violated parole, then you could be remanded to serve until your end of sentence, which for you is March 15, 2031.
Yes.
You are aware of that. Okay. So
Yes.
sometimes people say they're not aware of that, so I just want to make sure that, you know, in the beginning that you're aware of that. I'm sure your attorney has been very thorough, and I'm sure he had told you too, but I just wanted to make sure. So when you were discharged of special parole, so this New York offense, you're saying that you didn't have a gun and you never shot a gun, right?
No. I didn't. What I'm saying is I was accused of having a gun. I never had a gun. Someone told them, I guess, that I had a gun or whatever. But I was coming out of a restaurant and they ran down on me from a restaurant. They didn't find any gun. I didn't have any gun or whatever the case may be. But I've been sitting in the county jail for some time. So when they came with the offer, I just took the offer and I wanted it to be over with.
Yeah, I understand accepting it, especially if you've been sitting there that long. So,
My fiance was pregnant with twins. You know what I'm saying? She lost her twins from the police having a whole bunch of stuff in the precinct trying to get her to tell on something that didn't happen. You know what I mean? So she bled out right there in the precinct. They didn't take her to the hospital or anything. And just for the record, the same officer, the supervisor that did all that, he just got charged with something in New York.
So in the police report from New York, and I understand the attorneys, putting into context police reports, but it does talk about video camera footage of what they identified to you as having a gun, and then you and your fiance in the subsequent interviews, both acknowledged having a gun. After at first denying it, it says that you both did acknowledge that you had a gun.
No. But like I just said, that same officer, he just got criminal charges for setting people up in New York.
And it says that the video of your interviews were uploaded to, and then they give the website. So there would be video of that interview where reportedly.
I seen the video, and that's why they came down on the charges and gave me time served, because it didn't show that I had a gun. That's exactly why.
And the video footage that they're saying showed you having a gun, you're saying that that footage was also,
That's the footage that I'm saying, that it didn't show me as having a gun. So when I went in there, I was gonna go to trial on that because I know that I didn't have no gun. But they offered me time served right then and there. It was like 15 months, 18 months or something like that. And I just said, I'll take it just to get it over with.
and then the plea you took, that was for, because yeah, the original charges were the criminal possession of a weapon second and reckless endangerment first. But the plea you took was for what conviction with time served?
I'm not even sure. I don't want to tell you something that's
Okay.
not correct. I'm not even.
That's smart.
sorry.
I appreciate, that's smart. That's very good. I don't,
They
yeah.
use different statutes in Connecticut.
Yeah, yeah.
In New York, and I'm not
Familiar
familiar.
with what
So
it is.
that's why I
Okay,
didn't
okay,
want to put any down on the record.
Okay.
I'm not licensed in New York, so I
okay.
can't speak on what
We
the
don't want to
actual
miss,
statute.
yeah,
So all we have is reports that we have.
Correct.
yeah, yeah.
That's what we gotta go with.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate, and I appreciate your intent to be fully honest and not misrepresent anything. So you had answered my colleague and said that you don't have any prior history with gun convictions, right?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about like from 2025 with the North Carolina and Virginia situation. But I'm talking about as far as me being on parole or anything like that. No, I
Okay.
haven't.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification because that
Yes.
seemed like a misrepresentation of the truth. And so I just wanted to, because there have been other things, but that's not what we're discussing today. But I just wanted to make sure that
Yes.
you weren't saying that there was nothing ever. Okay.
Mhm.
And I understand what you're saying about the two assault bursts, that you're saying you did shoot the one person, but you did not shoot the other. And you're saying it was self-defense. He was in a car, right? But you're saying
Yes.
you were outside the car,
Mhm.
but you're saying that he had a gun and that you shot into the car at him because of that?
No, what it was is I was robbed a few hours prior to that. And then, when I seen him again, it was, it just escalated from there.
Yeah. And some prior interviews you talked about, you realized you should have called the police or something, but instead it was like the kind of the street
Absolutely.
justice, which is what you kind of say is the culture you had known at that time. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
Absolutely. I mean, at the same time, I paid the price. I paid the price for, what I did. And, I'm sorry that happened, whatever case, but I paid for that time,
So, all right. So when you came back to New York, let's see, I think you came back January in 2025, after being in community supervision in New York, if I'm correct. How were you getting along with your parole officer then? How were you doing then? If you could tell us about how you're doing on special parole.
I was doing excellent. I was planning on getting off of parole altogether. She told me to give her another year and that, I was doing excellent. She actually moved off my case because she was something like a supervisor or whatever. And she was like, I don't even want to stay on your case anymore. You're doing good. I just want you to keep doing what you're doing so I can get you removed from there. And I was like, okay. But the issue with my parole officer was I asked him for a pass to go to New York for Thanksgiving. And he wanted to deny me a pass to go to New York for Thanksgiving. So I asked to speak to the supervisor because I had no problems, So the supervisor said, the man just came out of the country. He's been like everywhere he wants to go. He asked for passes with no problem. Ahead of time, on time, everything. There's no reason why you should tell him that he can't go on a pass to Thanksgiving for his family. Mm-hmm. So he offered me he issued me a pass. Ever since then, me and my parole officer just been like not seeing eye to eye. Okay. And I tried to come to him and speak to him as a man. Like, listen, like, I don't want no issues. I don't have no issues with you. Whatever you want me to do, you offer me classes, whatever. I'm trying to do what I have to do. My daughter just had my grandkids. You know what I mean? I'm a granddad now. I'm trying to be a changed person. I'm trying to do what I have to do. I understand situations happen. I'm not perfect. But at the same time, the only thing I can do is try.
If I may,
yes,
I did explain to my client, he had issues with his parole officer, currently violated, but the sole basis was the incident that occurred for the It's resulted in creating a public disturbance. So I did explain to my client,
Okay.
once there's police involvement, even if his parole
Oh,
officer
yeah.
didn't want to violate him, the supervisor is gonna make him file the remand paper. So Mr. Nelson, is aware that although frustrated with the current, but
Right.
that seems to be an ongoing issue. But as he indicated, he had a great relationship with his first parole officer,
Mhm.
and they spoke about getting off the parole earlier, and he needed to behave for another year. Obviously, this incident occurred.
Right.
Actually, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, not to cut you off, but my probation officer, at the same time, you know, when parole wasn't trying to let me go on my pass, my probation officer and my parole officer had an argument because my probation officer was trying to figure out why he was trying to deny me. He had me call my probation to get paperwork and everything sent over when he couldn't, like, did that himself or whatever the case may be. But I did it myself. I called her. I said, listen, can you contact my parole officer? They had got into an argument over there because she didn't know what was the problem. It's been like an ongoing problem with me and my parole officer ever since that day. I mean,
And so that would be, is that Thanksgiving 2025 then? Because you came back to New York January 2025, so that'd be,
yeah,
so you had, I see 4 misconducts though before Thanksgiving.
4 misconducts.
4 misconducts were issued
Oh, that
before
was-
Thanksgiving?
Yes, that was when my wife, she was going through problems with the babies or whatever, and I was at the hospital, and the person that worked at the halfway house, I guess that was his second job. So when I left work to go to see what's going on with my fiance, he worked at the hospital. So when he came to me, he was like very like, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." I said, "I have a family issue." I called them and told them that I have a family issue. My wife is in the hospital, you know, and I would like to go to the hospital. So they told me, call back, just wait for our call, whatever the case may be. And I waited to the point where, you know, I couldn't wait anymore. And I just went to the hospital, and he was there, and he came, you know what I'm saying? He was yelling at me in the hospital. So my anger got the best of me at that time. And, you know, I was just let him know, listen, my wife is right here laying in the hospital bed. You know, what do you want me to do? She can die. You know, I called the halfway house. I did everything I was supposed to do.
So did you call the halfway house before you went to the
Yes.
hospital?
Yes.
So that was not reflected, and it sounded as though, you know, the PO saw you and then went and he called the halfway house. They said they did not know you were at the hospital, that you had signed a pass to go to work.
That was not the PO. That wasn't the PO. That was I think he was like he just worked at the halfway house. It wasn't the parole officer at all.
Oh.
He just worked at the halfway house, and he seen me there, and that's when he just came at me crazy, and you know, that was that right there.
Okay. So you're saying that the guy who was working part-time at the hospital who saw you there, that
Yes.
him saying he called the halfway house then to make sure they were aware you were at the hospital and they said they were not aware, you're saying that's not true?
No, what I'm saying is I don't know if he didn't call anybody. When he seen me, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be here. This is his second job. The nurses and the doctors gave me their phone numbers and everything and said, listen, if you need us for anything, please contact us. Like, he's not even supposed to be, you know, coming at you like this. This is not the halfway house. This is a hospital. You know what I'm saying? And they was even wondering why he even was approaching me like that. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm in the halfway house right now. He works in the halfway house as a second job. I'm just trying to tend to my wife and see what's going on, you know, and go back to the halfway house. I called them. I did everything I was supposed to do. I can't just leave my wife laying in the hospital bed by herself like that, you know?
I see what you're saying. That does sound like an unfortunate situation, but I think that, when did you finish anger management? Do you remember?
I don't know the dates, but I know I did anger management like 2 or 3 times, and I finished it successfully. I went every week. You know, I took every drug test. I took every test they wanted me to take. I did everything I had to do.
Okay. Till May 2025. But 12 seconds, but you're saying you took it before that too, as well,
Yes.
so, right, so
Yes.
that'd be May 2025, so this incident at the hospital was March 2025. And then 2 of your other misconducts were for GPS shutdowns. I'm not as concerned about that. I know, I mean, that you are advised to charge it and everything, and they do sound like they were in the middle of the night, so I'm not personally focusing much on that. Then the other misconduct was July 4th, 2025. So this would be soon after you completed anger management. And that was, the misconduct was for violent behavior, and police were called because you punched a hole in your sister's drywall. Police had come, you weren't arrested because I guess your sister chose not to press charges, but you still received the misconduct because the behavior that had exhibited. So do you know
Yes.
why? And then, of course, we have, so that was July 4th, and then we have the arrest in December, and I have heard and listened to your explanations, yours and your attorneys. Why? So what would help you with anger? What do you think? You've taken it a few times. Is there something, I read you kind of, I read some of your background and everything, and so I don't want to, we are live streaming, and I don't want to get into it. So, but we want you to not have to go through that either. We don't want you in there. We don't want you, and this is not serving you in any way. It's also, of course, not serving your fiance, people who love you, children, and then, of course, just the general public. So that, we want this to stop for everybody. Is there something, do you have any insight as to what might help? And I know that's a big question to ask. Have you taken programs in there, or is there something in there? Go ahead, please.
I mean, there's no programs in here, but I was doing good with the program out there when I was taking it. It was helping me. So, I cannot say that it hasn't. But, like I said, I'm not perfect. I just try to do what I have to do. It was just situations that occurred, But
If I may, as far as the program, this particular time, it's the nature of the disposition that precludes him, because he's not being held on the $50 fine that was remitted. So he's not a sentenced prisoner. There's a parole remand. That's why he's being held. So he can't, the DOC is looking at it. He's not theirs at this point. He's paroled, and that's the problem. But he has engaged in treatment in the past when he was under DOC or out in the community. It was mandated to do it. He did do it. Obviously, none of the violations are to do with him not complying. It's just the obedience to the law charge. And unfortunately, the disposition to the infraction, he's not DOC quote unquote property at this time. That's just unfortunate. But even if he wanted to, he can't, because
Thank you.
Doesn't have the correct status, I guess, in better language.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. I see what you're saying. And then, of course, when you were when you were then being brought into custody, we have, you didn't receive a misconduct for it, but certainly there was an aggressive response to that as well. How has your behavior been in the facility since you've been? How are you doing in there?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay, so you haven't had any issues there? You've been able to manage things?
Say that again?
You've been able to manage your behavior and you've had no issues while you've been in there?
I mean, I've had a fighting ticket. I'm not going to lie to you or whatever, but, this is prison and, it's just protecting myself. You know what I mean? People found out that I was in here for those type of charges, and he wanted to talk junk to me, come in my face, and I just had to defend myself. But you know what I mean? People found out that I was in here for those type of charges, and he wanted to talk junk to me, come in my face, and I just had to defend myself. But
Right. Let me look at my list of questions real quick. I appreciate very much your responses and having this conversation with me. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Let's see. I think that might be it. Yeah, I think I'll pass it along to my colleagues, see if there's any other questions. Thank you for answering my questions again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Rodriguez. Question?
Well, Mr. Nelson, you can hear our concerns.
I can hear you.
You can hear our concerds.
Yes,
Right.
I understand.
You've had the opportunity to have treatment in the communities, and yet, and I know you said it was successful for you, but still there have been challenges in you being able to figure out how to manage your anger in certain kinds of stressful situations. And that concerns me. I'm sure it concerns us on the panel as well. The fighting ticket, was that the only ticket you got?
Intoxication.
When was that?
That was a couple months ago.
I'm sorry, I had it down as April 5th of this year. Is that correct?
Probably so. I'm sorry. Probably so. Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's the challenge that I think that I'm facing anyway, in this particular situation. And you know, I'm not sure where to go with it. I mean, you know, it's
I mean, everybody deserves a chance, you know. So the only thing
I hear
can
you.
do-
I hear you. I hear you on that, and I understand that. But just the fact that there's all of these outbursts from you in these situations, and that you haven't found a way to kind of be able to manage that and work through that. And even with, I mean, PCS doesn't even want you out at all.
If I may, based on the nature of the charges in the police report, as charged, based on that, yeah, I can understand them making that recommendation, but once again, I'm gonna stand by my comments because I keep making them.
I heard you.
And I'm saying,
Sorry.
not only
I
here,
heard you.
Mr. Rodriguez, even at our hearing, we've had cases where there's been nollies and dismissals and findings are made. Do you see the disadvantage we're at? What's happening is if our clients are not, this is not at Mr. Nelson. You guys, what you presented, I have no dispute with. The problem is if any of our clients, because they have a special label of a parole, there's police contact, there's no way for us to prevail. Anytime with a dismissed case, what else can I provide? They still make a finding. Nolly cases, they still make a finding. So we're in a tough position in our unit because if our clients, and I've been here from day one with our unit, all the attorneys in our office were fighting the same fight. If our client have police contact, I mean, what else can we do besides present a dismissal or a nolly and findings are made? The conduct meets the elements. I understand there's a different standard at the Board of Pardons and Parole. What we're looking for is some equity. Just because you're arrested doesn't mean, I've been saying that for 7 years at my hearing, just because you're arrested doesn't mean you did what the police claim you did. And if a charge is dismissed or nollied, yeah, because you're on parole, you have a, and I understand when you're on parole, you're subject to searches and seizures, cell phone, parole officers showing up at your door. We have no problems with that, but there has to be a middle ground where we start here and we end up here. Just because you're on parole, you can't be treated differently. I understand you have a different label, but at some point we have to find a middle ground.
Right.
So
I think, if I may, I think his sentence goes till 2031, and right now the state has entrusted him with serving some of that in the community with strict supervision. And I think we are looking at the totality of behavior through discretionary parole and special parole for this sentence. And so the misconducts, the arrest in New York, and then the arrest now, and I do respect and understand, and it's, you know, policy differences that are significant.
Absolutely.
It can result in freedom loss, you know, and so I respect and understand the argument you're making, the frustration that your division would have. You know, we of course have to follow our policy, and, you know, there could be policy arguments made at higher levels than us.
I agree, I agree with that.
That's what, we don't get paid that money,
I agree.
but just so, because, you know, and I know your primary focus was on that reduction to an infraction, but I just wanted to just take it back a second.
And I also don't want,
It's the totality of the behavior during,
I also don't want to take away from the work that he has done.
yes.
But there is a concern. I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But we did see you were working.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're
3
working
years
out of
with no
home.
problems at all. You know,
I don't want to
3
take away
years
from that.
with no
I don't
problems at all.
want to take away from that, nor do we want to see him here.
Are there any further questions?
I don't have.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we are going to discuss where we are, and your participation in the hearing is concluded. We're going to deliberate and give you a decision.
Okay, thank you.
Like for me to step out of the room?
No,
And deliberate?
I mean, it's a public,
Is that what you usually do?
you're just, so your portion of the hearing is just over.
Okay.
Board member Keith, your
Thank you.
thoughts?
You know, and this is a difficult scenario. Mr. Nelson, you know, particularly in the beginning of his, well, it was a brief time before his release. He was released March 2021. His arrest in New York and confinement began September 2021. So only 6 months later, was he then, you know, began serving some time there, pre-sentence, pre-conviction. Then he was released back to Connecticut in January 2025. And then 2 months later had his first misconduct for the confrontation at the hospital. You know, I certainly heard Mr. Nelson's argument, and this is certainly an emotional, heated time when someone you love is at the hospital, particularly if it's because they're carrying their baby and there's challenges. And I don't mean to get into medical stuff, but since Mr. Nelson raised that, just reiterating what he had said. So I do understand that there were two misconducts and GPS things. Again, I said I'm not too much focused on that. But then there was one again in July. So this is now about 6 months after returning to Connecticut for punching a hole in his sister's drywall. And then, of course, the December arrest, which, you know, I do appreciate the arguments and the fact that it was reduced to an infraction. And there were some, you know, the hostility and the comments made in December. And then, so he has completed anger management recently and then had still some of these. And to Mr. Nelson's point, you know, any behavior that we are used to, you know, engaging in does not resolve itself immediately. I do understand that and respect that. And I do see he was working, and prior to this release, he didn't really have a big employment history. So he did that. He did well with that. He had the little things with GPS, but he did complete GPS monitoring before his arrest in New York, and he did that well. So, I mean, I had a home, so he was doing well to a degree, but these misconducts and the two arrests in such a short period of time on parole supervision are, of course, concerning. And so his sentence does go till 2031. I'm concerned that the anger and the inability to control it is still quite prevalent. The parole officers in the community expressed serious concern for public safety. And so, you know, I am at this time in favor of a longer sanction.
But let's
1
not
year,
go
a year.
where we're there yet, because
Okay.
we want to have a
Okay.
discussion.
Well,
Okay.
I'm kind of in the same place as my colleague. And I guess I said earlier, I don't want to take away from what he's done. And I think he's, you know, tried to work towards that, but there's still some issues that are really going on with him. And those concern me. The fact that he hasn't been able to find a way to work through his anger just really concerns me. And so I'm kind of in the same place.
So, and you're,
I actually want to discuss, you know.
yep. So, I just, you know, I started the hearing, I wanted to lay out where we've been. And first and foremost, it's like, we have a felon with a gun and another gun and another gun. So number one, we can't go by the rules, by the laws. So it's a continued, I'm going to get out. And my concern is I'm going to get out and go get another gun. Right. So that's the first piece. Second piece is what's already laid out here, and that is a continuation of making decisions regarding, you know, others that have a disagreement with Mr. Nelson that immediately turn into things like threats, things like punching holes in walls, things like fights, things like that. And then a report, although not convicted in court, of a strangulation second, which is just a continued, a continued movement path toward, toward if I'm going to have a disagreement, I am not going to use what I learned in anger management. I'm going to continue to escalate this, right? And I know it's not an assault ticket, but then there's a fighting ticket while we're on a revocation. And then there's an intox ticket when we're on revocation, right? So I can't go by the rules as laid out for me to follow, right? So here, the question then comes to, what do I as a board member expect is going to happen if Mr. Nelson is released back into the community? Is he going to abide by the rules of parole, or excuse me, special parole?
Yes.
Or is he going to continue to do what what the track record shows that he's going to continue to do? And I get, there is a technicality about, not filing a certain piece of paper or document in court and resulting in certain things happening and stuff like that. I'm not concerned about documents in court. What I'm concerned about is a continued reaction to the things that are going on in Mr. Nelson's life.
Can I say something?
No, not at all.
Deliberating right now.
Okay.
So, he hasn't resolved anger issues, right? And he hasn't found a way to abide by the rules either, right? Continued to do that. And, and then, the truthfulness there is also concerning, because it gets asked about an intox ticket, and it was a couple of months ago. No, it was a couple of weeks ago. So then it's like, for me, it's like, I hear what he's saying, but then it comes down to credibility. It's like that's the spot that I'm in. It's like, where are we? And so I appreciate that, he went out and he got a job at Turkey Hill, and he started with anger management, behavioral health, and stuff like that. But then he continued to make the decisions that put other people in a spot. So I'm in agreement that 4 months is not enough for me. And his end of special parole is 2031. Board member Keys, I heard you say something about a total sanction of a year. And I can't argue with that. In fact, it's for me, it's something that's his ability to be on, or his being on special parole is important for when it comes to public safety. Because to go to the end here is not in the interest of public safety, right? And Mr. Nelson doesn't have to prove anything to us. He's got to prove things to himself, because this has got to stop. or we're going to continue to, see Mr. Nelson on the other side of a screen. And I hope that he's got to the place where he's done with that. So if board member Keys, if you were suggesting a year, I would be supportive of that. And I'm not.
Well, I'm also going to be supportive of that. I do hope that Mr. Nelson continues in the path he's been on.
He's on there, he had made a lot of progress compared to where he had been from everything we read. But.
So,
And I'm sure he doesn't want to see himself in this situation anymore either.
So, I want to change also, one of the conditions, well, not change, but I wanted to add to one of the conditions. Because he's been through it, but I want him in anger management again in the community. I know that he has to do domestic violence, but in order for him to be successful out there, he needs to take what he needs to take to be supportive. And if things are under his skin when he's out there, he needs to talk about them in anger management and come up with ways to deal with, things that make him angry. And what are alternatives other than punching holes in the wall or, creating public disturbance, or anything like that. At this point, regarding George Nelson, 414045, move to increase the sanction to 1 year, and his special parole release date would be 12/23/26. Is that a Saturday or Sunday? With the following stipulations to apply to his special parole. Behavioral management program for domestic violence, no contact with victims, SC and HK, general no contact with ND, mental health treatment. Is that mental health treatment or is that mental health treatment with medication compliance, halfway house placement if necessary, and behavior management for anger management? Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, you guys have it. The special parole release date to special parole is 12/23 with the stipulations as stated.
George, I'll set up a call with you tomorrow, kind of explain the process there.
Move the supplemental hearing for George Nelson, inmate number 414045.
Now, before we wrap this up, I gotta say this. When he got up and walked away, that right there said a lot. Pants hanging all the way down, underwear showing, moving like a young kid instead of a grown man. That's the part that stuck with me. And it's not even about trying to clown him. It's deeper than that. When you're standing in front of a parole board, everything matters. How you talk, how you carry yourself, your body language, all of that plays a role. That's your moment to show growth, maturity, and that you're really ready to come back into society different. And if you're still moving like you stuck in that same mindset, the board sees that. I've been there before. I know what that chair feels like. And I also know what it takes to actually change and move different. So yeah, second chances matter. I'm all for that. But growth gotta match the opportunity. If you got family in the system, or you've been through it yourself, this channel is for you.